What up, everybody? It's Aaron here with Robert, and welcome to Get Your Geek On. And today we are talking a review of The Batman.
The Batman, written and directed by Matt Reeves, starring Robert Pattinson, or Pattinson, if you will, Zoe Kravitz, Jeffrey Wright, Colin Farrell, Paul Dano, John Turturro, Andy Serkis, Peter Sarsgaard, Jamie Lawson, and a special appearance by Barry Keoghan, or Keoghan, or I don't know how you pronounce that one. But this is a non-spoiler review to start with. We will get into spoilers in a little bit, but we're going to start with just non-spoilers. So, you can listen to the first little bit of this, even if you haven't seen the movie. We will give you plenty of warning when we get into the spoilers. So I guess, just first thoughts, first initial impressions. Aaron, we saw this last night.
Right.
How do you feel about The Batman?
Overall, one of the better Batman movies, I will say, but it still lacked a lot. The more I sat here and, it's been, I'm like, 15 hours or so later, I have some issues with it now, and nothing small like a door, even though there was one. I'm sure if I watch it again, I'll find it. But no, it was good, but I don't think, as the critics are all saying, 10 out of 10, best one ever. I don't feel that.
Okay.
What about you?
So I think this is a Batman movie first and foremost.
Right.
Bruce Wayne is barely in it. This is a almost 3-hour long Batman movie.
Right.
Which I appreciated. I liked that we got that aspect of it. We really dove into the character of the Batman.
Mm-hmm.
Gotham very much felt like its own character. It felt very unique. I liked that. I think all of the characters and actors, I think, portrayed their roles really well.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that I was fully in for probably the first 2 hours and maybe 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
The climax didn't work as well for me, and we'll get into that obviously when we talk spoilers, but that was a portion of the movie that it felt a little bit disjointed from what we had previously gotten. It didn't feel like it was maybe part of the same story, and I think that maybe they could have just laid a little bit better groundwork for where it was going. It kind of took a weird turn, and it didn't feel like it earned that turn.
Right.
So I think the movie overall was a really solid movie. When I think of like my favorite Batman movies is Batman Begins, followed very closely by The Dark Knight. I think those two movies are easily the best of the bunch.
Right.
Especially live action. Obviously, when you get in animated, you've got movies like, Mask of the Phantasm and Lego Batman. People really enjoy those movies. I do too. But I think that overall, those are my two favorite Batmans. This one is up there. I don't know if it's going to unseat either one of those two. I'll need more viewings with it. But I think just on an initial watch, I really was invested in the early part of the movie, the first 2.5 acts, probably.
Right.
And kind of that last little bit, that last maybe 20 to 30 minutes, I wasn't as crazy about. And so I think that did leave a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth, but I don't want to overshadow how good the early part of the movie was, because it really was an excellent kind of noir Batman movie.
Right.
And I don't know that we've ever really gotten a full-on noir in the Batman universe. I know we've talked about it a lot, but this one really leans into that trope. And so I thought it was really good. It could have been great. Right. And I think it just fell short based on some of those elements.
And I agree. We kind of are similar on what Batman movies we like. I'm opposite. I switch Dark Knight and Batman Begins. I go that route.
I think most people do. I think I
the minority here.
I prefer like an origin story. I prefer like the first movie in a franchise. Almost always. Like there's a few exceptions, but yeah, I prefer getting to know Batman. The Dark Knight is more of a Joker movie to me, which is fantastic. I love it. But I really enjoy getting to know Batman in Batman Begins. So.
Right. And I'm glad you touched on that, man. I don't think this is a spoiler, really. I like that we don't tell his origin for the 15,000th time. We kind of
No,
skip that.
yeah, yeah.
And I enjoy that because, I mean, if you know anything for the last 30 plus years of movies, you know his origin story. You know, okay, Dark Alley, they were shot, la 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 la. And I'm glad we didn't
Let's
tell
be
that.
honest. If you're going to see this movie, you know Batman's origin,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Like, and even if you don't, they give you enough in this movie to,
Mhm.
like, you know, okay, he's an orphan, his parents died, like, so they give it. They just don't show it to you. They don't.
Exactly.
They don't make you relive that. They don't show a flashback where he's standing at their
Right.
graves and he's seeing, you know, like, we don't see it.
We don't
which
need
I think,
that.
no, we definitely don't need it.
And I think that's perfect. I think that was one of the better parts of this movie for me, that we show it haunts him. He comments that he's been Batman for about 2 years now at this point. So I like that we get almost a time skip. You know, it's not like, oh, you're day one Batman, or it's not Batman who's been doing this for years and years and years. So he's still relatively new. He still is there. And I'm kind of curious on his rogues gallery, because now that you've established he's been there for 2 years, there's some of the villains, to me, if they decide to continue this franchise, you don't really need to give him an origin story, because it's like, oh yeah, he already knows them a little bit because he fought them once maybe. Sure. And now it's like, oh look, here's, you know, Clayface, here's this. Oh yeah, well, you know, it sucks that he's spelling those chemicals, you know, blah blah blah. But you don't have to tell the whole origin of Clayface falling in. It's like he's already knows who he is.
Yeah.
I do agree with you. I think the film is a tad too long. I really do feel it dragged at certain points, though. Like you said, you were about 2.5 acts in.
Yeah.
I think there was like 2 points where I checked out for like a good 10 minutes.
Yeah. So I will say I didn't feel that. I didn't have any issues with the pacing or the length of it. It was really just kind of some of the story choices at the end that I was not a big fan of. I really appreciated how much it lingered on some things. I felt like it really made it feel like we were in this with Batman.
I do agree on that.
And so I really did like that. You know, I want to transition and talk just about the cast. Because, you know, I already said all the names up front, but I have to say, I thought, you know, Robert Pattinson and Zoe Kravitz, I thought had really great chemistry. I thought that they worked well together. I thought Jeffrey Wright as well, him and Robert Pattinson, when they were on screen together, Gordon and Bruce Wayne, that was amazing. Really great. Colin Farrell, unrecognizable as Penguin.
He's so unrecognizable.
And he was great. Like, I loved this version of the Penguin. It felt very authentic. It felt like, you know, he was a kind of a mob character, a mobster. And we appreciated it. I thought, you know, Paul Dano, we didn't get a ton of him unmasked. Most of the time he was, you know, kind of in his, but I thought he was really bringing it. And I have to say, I loved Andy Serkis. I thought his Alfred was great. I wanted more. I was disappointed we didn't get more of him, because I really liked his take on Alfred. What about you? Did you have any other standouts? Anyone that I haven't mentioned, or you want to touch on something that I did?
No, I think Riddler, it was a nice take on an old school character. You know, we're all used to seeing the bright green and the question marks and all this. I feel they incorporated those question marks perfectly in this film. It wasn't over the top or anything. It was almost like a sniper scope with the radicals on it, or the radials on it sometimes. So I loved the way they did that character. He brought that character to life. I think on screen he was amazing for what they wanted. I will say Robert Pattinson as Batman was good. I wish I would have gotten a little more of his Bruce Wayne to see how it would have been, but Batman, I'm sold on him as Batman now.
I think no spoilers. I think we'll see that in sequels. I
hope so.
They clearly left this open for sequels, which of course they did. It's Batman, it's franchise, like all those things. And I think that some of the choices he makes at the end of this movie, I think we are going to see more of his Bruce Wayne, is what I will say.
I agree. I think Penguin, the way they portrayed that character, perfect. I think he was done right. I mean, literally unrecognizable. I kept looking at him, I was like, that's not Colin. That's not Colin. Every time I saw him.
Just every once in a while, it would be like, I could kind of see you under there. But it's very hard to see him underneath.
Just I want to make sure, was the guy who played Falcone, was that the guy from Transformers?
Yeah, John Turturro,
Yes.
who definitely has been in Transformers. A lot of people know him from The Big Lebowski.
Big Lebowski, that's the other one. I couldn't
He's
remember.
been in a lot of stuff. And
Him,
yes, we do get him as Falcone.
I liked his portrayal of Falcone.
Sure.
Just, and it wasn't even about like entering the room and like, y'all look at me, but it was still one of those like, I don't want to mess with him kind of feels.
Yeah,
like I don't want to meet Falcone anywhere.
Yeah, he played a kind of an understated menacing. Like,
Yeah,
it wasn't over the top. It
Mhm.
wasn't, certainly it wasn't a physical presence that was menacing. But it was very much like every time he was on screen, it felt like almost like he's a snake oil salesman, like
Exactly.
he's selling you something, you're uncomfortable with it, and if
Mhm.
you make a wrong move, you might be dead.
Exactly. And I love, to me, that's how Falcone should have been. It always should be that way, and we get we get talks of Maroni. We don't see him. I did like that we kind of moved away from that. And then I like the ever presence of a mobster, because that's what Batman really fights, is mobsters. Yes, we get the supervillains, but when you trace them back, Two-Face, Penguin, to an extent, I would say even like Riddler can all be more like mob bosses. Riddler doesn't really do a lot, I would say, but yeah,
like Riddler has always been more kind of just kind of independent. And so that honestly went well, and I don't want to spoil anything, but that was one of the things that I didn't kind of like, how they took his storyline at the end. But the one actor we haven't really talked much about, is a very small role, Peter Sarsgaard, who played the district attorney. And there was a lot of speculation that he was going to be Two-Face, because, he's a district attorney. But I think clearly they are setting that up that we could get some movies with Harvey Dent, hopefully. Harvey Dent is not in this movie. I don't mean to say that's a spoiler, but I hope we get some movies of Harvey Dent before he becomes Two-Face.
Exactly.
Like I would love for this to turn into like 10 movies. I'd be okay with that or not. But something along those lines where, like we actually get a movie or two of a Harvey Dent before he becomes Two-Face.
Right.
And we see that friendship build between him and Bruce Wayne, because I think that's an important aspect that was kind of missing from both of our previous aspects that we've had of Harvey Dent and Two-Face. So I hope they hit that. All right.
I do want to say real quick before, because we didn't even touch on her, Zoe Kravitz. Yeah. We didn't touch on her at all, really. What did you think about?
I just talked about their chemistry. I thought they had really great chemistry. Overall, I thought she did a good job.
Do you think she did a good job? Okay.
She's not one of my favorite actresses working today, but I think I liked her portrayal. Again, what sells it is the chemistry with her and
do you like her as Selina, though, or do you think they could have got, she was okay? Like the chemistry, minus the chemistry, as Selina Kyle, though, was she good to you?
Yeah, I think it worked fine. I think Catwoman is one of those characters that I think has been reinterpreted so many different ways. That I didn't need her to be, like, oh, I need her to be this Catwoman or that Catwoman or anything like this. She's a character that lives in the gray, is willing to cross lines that Batman's not willing to, but she, generally in most iterations is a good-hearted person. And just, will make maybe certain choices. And so, I thought it worked well. I thought the way they tied her story in, and gave her kind of a personal motivation made a lot of sense too. I liked it.
I did too. And the reason I wanted to mention it is because there is a version of her, and I thought she fit it perfectly, where Selina is kind of, I don't want to say a certain word because might get like in trouble for YouTube, but she took care of the girls. I'll say it that way. And she protected them. And that was really felt in this one. Like, she didn't care about Bruce's mission. She didn't care about anyone else except as long as the girls are safe. One girl is safe. That was her friend. And like, she makes a comment, I take in strays. So I do want to see like if she knows other women, if the other ones, like, did she take care of them as well? Did she get them out of the business? Because that's kind of like what she would do in the comic. She was the head one. And it's like, I take care of my girls. You mess with them, I'll come kill you because you don't mess with my girls. And she did that in this one. She was ready to go kill the detective or lieutenant, whoever he was. And I like that aspect that we got that Selina Kyle, not, and yes, let's face it, she is the lump interest, and that's what they kind of focus on too. But I feel like she did stand alone at times, and I liked it.
Yeah, she had her own motivations, her own story going on in the background.
Yeah.
It wasn't the focus of the movie. The movie's called The Batman. So we
Yeah.
follow Bruce, we follow his story. But yeah, I think that they gave us enough to want more of her.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And ultimately, they're gonna make a sequel to
Oh
this.
yeah.
I want them to make a sequel to this, even though I didn't love the way it kind of ended. I want to see more in this world. And so yeah, I mean, I think this was a really good movie. I wish, a couple things had been a little bit different, but overall, I'm just gonna, before we transition spoilers, I'm gonna give my score. I'm gonna throw this at an 8.2 out of 10. I think this was a really, really good movie, with really strong performances, some really cool action, and ultimately, it is a Batman movie, which
it really is.
We can't always say that about a lot of the live action Batman movies that we've gotten. A lot of them tend to focus on the villains more so. And this one, we really got a deep dive into Batman. So I really appreciated that. And yeah, I think it's a very solid movie. So what about you?
I agree. I think it is a solid film. I think it does well for what they were trying to go for. And it hit where they needed to. I kind of agree though with you that there were aspects I didn't like. And unlike some of these critics that are like, oh, 10 out of 10, best Batman, all the other crud. I'm with you. It's for me, I just do a straight 8 out of 10.
Sure.
But same thing basically. I agree with you. I think it needs work. Again, there were points where I literally checked out for about 10-15 minutes maybe because it slowed down a little too much for maybe my taste. I do think personally it does suffer a little bit because of the PG-13 as well. I am interested in a rated R Batman or maybe a harder PG-13, like one step below rated R, because I mean, let's face it, you can only do so much with it as a PG-13. We can't show some of the blood and gore. We can't show a lot of what I wish we could see.
I think just to address that, I didn't feel that. I felt like, they didn't need to show the blood and gore for you to know that there was blood and gore. When you see shot well, yes. When you see Batman, pounding on someone's face, I don't need to see a pool of blood, underneath their head. Like I can feel the ferocity of what he's doing. And so, or when, Riddler kills someone, I don't need to see it. And I actually thought they did it a couple times where they kind of blurred the camera as things were going on. And I thought that was a clever way to, that something horrifying is happening and you don't need to see it. And so I didn't have that same issue. I don't know that I want them to go the R-rated route just because I'm afraid it would turn gratuitous. Like,
that is true.
So
too.
I think that having that restriction, having to show that restraint and finding ways to make it, still feel the brutality without crossing that line. I think this movie did it well. And so if you're going to ask me, would I go see an R-rated Batman? Of course I would. But I don't think I need one.
And I guess I'm a little opposite. I want more language. Not I guess the blood, yes, but I want a little more language because again, these cops at the end of the day don't like him. Not all of them. Let me rephrase. Not all the cops like him. Some don't. And you get the F-bomb real quick in the film that they can get one. So they got it really quick. I don't
even remember when they said it, so.
Whenever that first guy's dead and then the chair, he's like, what the F is he doing here? And that was the only time you got it.
Yeah, I didn't. It passed right over me because I wasn't paying attention.
Only reason I picked it up was your wife commented. She goes, can't they say it one more time? I was like, no, they get one. That's all they got. And they used it.
As long as it's in a non-sexual fashion as well. If they use it in a sexual fashion, then you don't even get the one.
Yeah, that is true. So they were just talking about dead body.
Welcome
so moving on.
Prudes in America.
Prudish. Prudes we are. So, spoiler alert.
Spoilers.
Right here.
Spoilers.
Right here. Spoiler alert.
The Batman.
Can I start backwards real quick?
Go ahead. Sure.
I hated the end scene. I hated.
In Arkham?
In Arkham. So the end scene, this is spoilers right now. I'm going to rephrase. If you haven't stopped, stop now. Come back later.
And I will just say very quickly.
Yeah.
This we've talked about this when we talk about the review of the Book of Boba Fett and how they messed up the sequencing of their end scenes.
Yes.
This one actually did it right because you're not talking about the end scene. The end scene was Batman riding off on his motorcycle with, like with Catwoman and everything.
Yeah.
And that's how the movie should have ended. So they actually, unlike Book of Boba Fett, which ended on the Mandalorian and Grogu, this movie ended on its appropriate relationship, its appropriate characters, Batman and Catwoman. Just before that, we got a scene with Riddler in Arkham talking to an unseen individual who is clearly the Joker.
And I have a problem with that. One I have many reasons in this whole was like maybe a minute that they're talking, maybe two.
Yeah.
I mean, you get hints that it's the Joker. He talks about don't let them make you a clown. He talks about being your only friend. He makes a riddle to Riddler, and Riddler says, "Oh, a friend," and then he does that cynical laugh that we all know Joker's known for.
Yeah, I like the riddle, which is, I think it was what is, if you have less of me, I'm worth more. What am I? It's a friend.
Yeah.
So I like that.
It was a good riddle, and Joker is good at him too, and because Joker's also brilliant. He's insanely brilliant. But again, and this is something I watched it and I was okay with it at first. Sat here, thought about it. I hate it now. And again, I do not need another Joker in my Batman films. Batman has such a huge rogues gallery. I don't want another Joker film. We've had, I'm going to name this real quick. We have Jack Nicholson, we've had Heath Ledger, we have Jared Leto, we've had Joaquin Phoenix. I am done with the Joker. And you know me, I'm a Joker fan.
How dare you erase Cesar Romero?
Oh, Cesar Romero, I forgot about that. Yeah, going back further, we got Cesar Romero if we go to TV shows.
And he was in a movie. Batman 66 is a movie.
Oh, that's right. That's true.
Zach Galifianakis played the Joker in Lego Batman. Don't forget that.
I'm not going animated.
Mark Hamill was in Mask of the Phantasm. There's been a Joker. There's been a Joker in every Batman franchise. And so this is what I will say. I have the same complaint you do. I don't. This is where I get into, is because I think that there's more interesting stories to tell with Batman and Joker in movies. So I'm okay with them bringing a Joker in. It felt very tacked on in this movie. I don't need, and this is, Marvel does this too. Every franchise does this, where it's like, oh, look, here's this seed for something that might be coming in the future. Yeah. Here's this Easter egg. This one was just so overt, and it felt so disconnected from the rest of the movie that it really it bugged me in the same way. I'm not bugged that they're bringing Joker into this universe, because I think there's room for Joker in a Batman franchise, in a sequel. I'm totally fine with that. It just felt very out of place in this movie.
And I agree, there's always tons of stories with Joker. There's always a lot with them too, because they are the opposite sides of the same coin. They really are when you break them down. And he's also the most recognizable villain in comics. I'm just going to say it that way.
Sure.
So you want to put him out there because people will watch something with the Joker. My complaint is we have so many other characters that I think could have had a better, compelling storyline for that last part. And I'm going to name one right now that I think maybe you would even say that would have been a good fit, especially knowing the Riddler was also an orphan. He's commenting about that. We know Batman's an orphan. What if it was Hush? Hush, I think, would have been a better person sitting in that cage than anyone, because he's also comes from a rich family. Bruce has that connection with Bruce, but he was also an orphan, having a connection with Riddler still. And he's also freaking insane.
So this is ultimately my problem, is I don't want another supervillain introduced in this movie, no matter who it is. I don't care if it's Joker. I don't care if it's Hush. I don't care, because even though this wasn't an origin story and he's been Batman for 2 years, this feels like the first time he's gone up against a supervillain. It feels like he's been Batman against street criminals for 2 years, maybe fighting the mob here and there. But I don't want it to be that he's the one that put Joker in Arkham, because
Gotcha.
I don't want to have that story already told. Mainly because I think that would weaken this story, because Batman, and this is to the movie's credit, he goes through a big transformation in this movie from where he is at the beginning to where he is at the end, in just the way he sees Gotham and the way he sees the Batman as part of Gotham. And so if you're going to tell me that he's had these other battles with a Hush or with a Joker or with a Clayface or like, but none of those changed his perspective on Batman, I have a problem with that. And so I like thinking that this is the first time he's come up against a big major supervillain that's forced him to reevaluate things. So that is ultimately, I don't want anyone, and I just, again, it also just felt very tacked on. It didn't feel like part of the movie.
It really did, and that's where I'm done with that.
I want to get into just a narrative issue, because I wonder if you noticed the same thing I did.
Okay. There's one part I really do have, so I'm curious.
Halfway through the movie.
Oh God, I think it's the same.
The district attorney gets his head exploded right in front of Batman, and he survives. And Batman regains consciousness surrounded by cops. It was unclear whether they had transported him back to like the police department or whether they were still wherever they had been, but whatever. He comes to surrounded by cops, and there's a lot of, antagonistic, stuff going on. And, Gordon helps him escape by basically saying, punch me, and then, here you go, and helps him escape. So, okay, fine. All that. Now the police, everybody in the police just saw him hit his only ally, his only defender. They have to hate Batman at this point, right? All the police hate Batman. Until inexplicably they don't at the end of the movie when he walks out with Falcone and all of the police are totally fine with him. And then they go up to Riddler's apartment and they're like looking over all the evidence, and Batman's there, and none of the police are like, hey, you punched Gordon. What the hell is wrong with you?
Yeah.
Like, it was just so weird that all of a sudden all of those cops were okay with Batman again. I'm like, what was the point then? Yeah. I think the point was just to have a cool scene where he could jump off the top of a building.
Oh yeah,
which was a cool scene. But I also am like, from a narrative standpoint, it made zero sense to me. I don't know.
Mine was different, but no, I agree with you. It was odd. And then I thought one thing though, the whole time he's running through that huge, because it's a huge, we'll say a police building, because there was police on like every floor.
Yeah,
every floor. He was like,
I know.
Cop.
I was like, what is this place?
I figured it out. I figured out how to solve Gotham's issue. If all those cops would just stop sitting in the office and go work, Gotham would be okay. Because there was like 20, 30 cops on every floor. Let's all shoot up at Batman. Bam. Hey guys, by the way, we probably shot some civilians as we're shooting up because, well, this isn't the smartest idea, but we should all probably actually be out in the streets, cleaning the streets up, because there's like 300 of us here, and they're already like robbed like 6 guys outside the front door. Like, come on. My actual narrative scene, which was a little more obscured, and I don't know if maybe you picked up on it too or not, or maybe you didn't mind it. The scene with Gordon, Batman, and Penguin. Penguin literally calls them the world's greatest detectives. But I don't feel that he should have known anything about that really to give that kind of line, unless we go back and say, unfortunately, he's fought other supervillains or other villains and has had to do detective work.
I think he was being sarcastic. I think he was.
Well, he was being sarcastic, yeah, but
right, because he was like throwing it in their face, like, you guys. I think it was an Easter egg to say the world's greatest detective, but I think from Penguin's perspective, he was just being like, you guys are morons. Like you fingered the wrong guy. Like, and you read all the evidence and then you came to the wrong conclusion. What's the wrong? You guys are idiots.
Yeah. And I think that's why I want that second watch on this one, just to kind of pick up more. Cause like, I'm looking at every little detail in that first watch. Like I want to see what's going on. But I did like the dry humor in that sense too. They just left him there.
Oh yeah. So, okay. I want to talk about the Riddler, and I want to talk about the Riddler's plan.
Okay.
Right. So the Riddler is trying to expose corruption that's been going on for 20 years, which ties together the mayor, the police chief, the district attorney, Thomas Wayne, and the mob,
Falcone,
right?
Yeah.
All those things, basically, they're all in cahoots. They're all working together, all this stuff. And the whole thing he's doing is he's trying to expose that. But he doesn't want to just like publish a video that says, hey guys, here's the evidence and all. Like, I'm going to kill people. And okay, whatever.
The only way to do it is you got to kill people to get people to watch.
So help me understand, because I don't understand. And maybe you don't either. Maybe I would need to talk to Matt Reeves to understand it.
Matt, are you listening?
how does his final piece of the puzzle fit in with that overarching plan? Like, how does his causing this major flood in Gotham, potentially killing a bunch of random citizens, as well as setting up the assassination of the new mayor, who was not in on any of this corruption? How does that fit in with his plan? Because I don't get it. I don't know why he took that step.
I agree with you. Like, that's the problem. I had a problem with that whole last part because he made sense. I get where he was going. Oh, the only one we missed was Bruce Wayne. I wish we could have killed him because we got to kill the son, the sins of the father. I give him that. Even
that scene in Arkham between him and Batman was amazing.
That's what sold me on him. That was amazing.
So good. And Robert Pattinson's reaction when he realizes that Riddler doesn't know that he's Bruce Wayne Batman. Like, that is a great. It is a great moment because you can see just in his eyes that his like, oh Jesus, like he was so worried that Riddler knew that Bruce Wayne was Batman. And when that finally is revealed, that was a great scene. But I just, that whole scene was again, great. But I don't understand why, his motivation at the end, because I was tracking with him all throughout that conversation where he's talking with Batman and explaining what he was trying to do and how he viewed Batman as a partner. We're brothers in arms. We're both trying to, like, clean up the city. It's just like we just do it different ways, kind of thing. And so I was tracking with all of that. And then it turned into, and also I want to just kill a bunch of random people and assassinate the new mayor because, Thomas Wayne promised us change 20 years ago. And now this politician's promising change and we can't believe any of them. And it was like, you haven't given her a chance. Like, it just felt very weird.
I would say that's where he has his mental break, because at that point you could say Riddler is just crazy. And at this point in his mind, kind of like the Punisher, the only way to like get rid of evil is to wipe out everybody and start over. And I feel like that's kind of what he was going with. Like, the only way to solve this problem is to just murder everybody and let everything start over, and hopefully it's for the best.
Yeah.
But I have a problem with that because you didn't set it up that you hated every single person. Right. If they would have set up that he's like, these people are the most evil, but all people are evil, then I would have been okay with it. But all we set up is that these are the most evil people, and I don't like it. What I think they're trying to do, though, from a movie standpoint, is they're setting up the comic called No Man's Land, where all the bridges are blown up and Gotham is left on its own to survive. He blows up the seawall. He starts flooding it. We assume the bridges are blown so people can't escape. And I think that's what they're trying to do, is you're trying to make this the rundown Gotham so we can get that no man's land and get other villains to rise up.
I think I will just say that the first, 2+ hours of this movie felt like a serial killer movie.
Oh yeah.
And then that last act felt like the Joker. It felt like it was a different villain, like doing, and so it's just like, it was a total difference for me, and the scene was still like, it was still executed well.
Yeah.
There was still good action. There was still all that stuff. And honestly, it helped complete Bruce's arc, or Batman's arc, I should say. And I thought it did that really well. When he hears that random henchman, say that he's vengeance, which is what Batman's been saying he is this whole movie. And he, like Catwoman, he saw Catwoman willing to cross that line. And he's trying to, and so he's realizing slowly throughout the movie that vengeance doesn't bring restoration, and it doesn't make things better. And so he's coming to that realization at the end of the movie that he has to become something more than just vengeance. Right. He has to become something more that will actually help heal the city, that will help, people move on. So I thought it worked well for Batman's arc. It just didn't make sense from a perspective of it being the Riddler's plan. Like, that was the part that I just wish they would have found a different way to do that. Because it just, ultimately, I didn't like that portion of it. I do want to watch it again. Maybe I'll feel something different. Maybe I'll see some other things early on that'll help me, kind of put that into a more cohesive bit. But it just, on the first watch, like, even though I was enjoying the scene, I was like, this doesn't fit with the rest of the movie.
Right. And I agree with you. It doesn't. again, I feel like it's trying to set up future stuff. That's all it's trying to do.
Yeah, maybe.
And you hit my door scene, by the way.
Oh yeah, what was that?
So Batman gets shot with the shotgun. He is going to fall into his death. Selina saves him. He's laying there, about to go unconscious. We see random henchmen come, grab Selina, and starts beating her up, right?
Okay.
We assume he pulls out adrenaline, and it looks like he stabs it in his leg.
It's bat adrenaline.
Bat adrenaline. That could get shot up anywhere, right? You just stick that wherever you want at that point.
Don't worry about it.
Because this is actually heart, and it's like he looks like he hit his leg, and I'm like,
yeah. So this is actually a good segue because I did want to talk about Batman's gadgets.
Yeah.
Like,
okay.
Batman is always famous for his gadgets. We've got a few things in this one. We see him use like a grappling hook. We see him use his bat adrenaline. We see
Thank you so much.
I thought about that like an hour ago. I came up with that. I was like, we're going to talk about that.
That was my door scene, though.
His little contacts that record everything.
That was cool.
I thought that was awesome. His little chest plate that comes off, and he can use it kind of like he used it basically as a knife. We didn't see him throw it, but yes, it could have become a batarang potentially. So what do you think about all his gadgets? I agree. I think the contacts one was the coolest.
The context one is probably by far my favorite. I did like the parachute one. I don't know what you call it exactly.
Oh yeah,
that one was cool.
Where his suit kind of turned into
of like a glider.
Yeah, what do they call that when people like do cliff diving? You know, like basically. And yeah.
That was cool. I mean, I honestly thought this was one
How
of the
did he
better
survive that? By the way,
God, dear God, he should have been dead. He would have been dead.
The parachute clips the bridge and
he knocks his head too.
Slams into that semi and then rolls on the ground going who knows how fast. Like it's at least like 50 miles an hour.
He'd be dead.
He's like, I'm fine.
And see, that's what I was kind of like, that pulled me out just a little bit. I mean, it was funny because it's like he hits that, he clips his head, he like does a tumble. And again, showing that he's not like at his peak yet because he's not full on like I know how to read all this stuff, which okay, you're still learning. And that seemed to be his first time ever using it because he was like scared almost to jump off.
Yeah, he did seem like, holy crap, I prepared for this, but I also didn't want to have it come to this.
Yeah, so I love that whole scene, sold me on that part. But like you said, the whole clipping, all that, like that was like you kind of lost me because the way your head snapped back, you should be dead. You should not be alive. They should find your body later and be like, oh, Bruce Wayne was Batman.
So, I was just gonna say, I think I agree with you. Like on the gadgets, there was some cool stuff. What did you think about the bat suit overall and the Batmobile? Good, Batmobile, bad, fine.
Was okay, and the only reason I'm giving it an okay is because again, this is early Batman. He hasn't built the true like Batmobile with all the gadgets. This was what, a Camaro, I think, that he converted, it looked like. I'm not a big car guy.
Some kind of flame coming out of the back.
Yeah, it was like something he converted. I'm sure someone will comment it's what kind of vehicle it is if you go watch it. I think it was a Camaro though.
I don't know.
I mean, it was cool looking, but again, not the Batmobile I'm hoping for. But I hope that he kind of starts adding more and we get more of like the designs we're used to. As for the suit, I kind of agreed with you on the sense of I don't like bulletproof Batman. I don't like that he could pretty much take any bullet and he's okay. I would have been probably a little bit better if it could be like he could take small arm fire, like a handgun. Cool, he can block that. Oh crud, you're coming at me with an assault rifle. My suit can't take that. Yeah, I would have been happier with that, I think.
And they also didn't really establish that the shotgun at the end would knock him down because he'd been taking bullet fire the whole movie and they hadn't established, like he hadn't had a conversation with Alfred where Alfred was like, bro, like stop taking bullet fire. One of these eventually is going to hit a spot and it's going to like I needed something like that to explain why finally after getting shot 100 times he finally would. And also like I know your body is 98% covered, but you also get shot 100 times, which means like maybe two of those bullets might have hit you in your jaw and you'd be dead. Like
the helmet's not bulletproof. I want to point that out. The helmet looks like leather.
I don't know.
Like you said, you're not covered your joints. All it takes is one ricochet and it hits your elbow. Well, there goes your arm.
Yeah.
My scene too, but besides the shotgun one, was with him and Catwoman.
We've been talking a lot of negatives and spoilers, just so
Yeah,
you know.
right. But my other thing too, but there's a lot of good to it. It's just we break stuff down. That's what I do and what you do. And it's like the one thing I didn't get in the scene too was where him and Catwoman are like getting she gets the money and she's trying to run away. He gets shot there and he gets knocked down. I'm like, you got shot like 20 minutes ago by like 5 or 6 guys and
it was inconsistent.
Yeah, that was one thing I didn't like. But again, overall, I'm still gonna say I love the movie. But again, you're just doing stuff because you're trying to move the plot. You're trying to make people feel suspense, and I get certain things, but you could have sold it better. Have that conversation with Alfred, and maybe even do a scene where it's like, "Ow, that bullet did pierce," like you said, Alfred. That's why he fell over. Adrenaline kicks in. He goes, does the penguin thing, but like later, show him take the plate off where the bullet pierced it. It's like Alfred's be like, "Duh, I told you." 100 bullets, you're gonna get hit eventually because it weakens the armor. Like, stop doing that.
We didn't really see any of the after effects of kind of him getting into all these fights, getting shot.
And I want to see that.
The flying off the roof and having, a crash. Like, we didn't see him dealing with any injuries.
No, and that's
and so
we had that in, I think, right? Like,
we definitely did.
Broken ribs and stuff.
Yeah, we definitely had that in the Bale movies. And so, yeah, I mean, like, there were some things they could have done better. I will say, again, I really liked the scene in at the funeral scene that ended up, in the district attorney's kind of like bomb standoff. Like, that whole scene was really great.
That was good.
I was really enjoying that. Again, we already talked about it. The Arkham scene between Riddler and Batman was a phenomenal scene. I really enjoyed that one.
Watch for that scene alone.
Yeah, I mean, that was just really great. I liked the stuff with Falcone, whether it was his conversations with, Bruce Wayne, or his conversations with Catwoman, who was revealed to be his daughter. Like there was a lot of really good stuff going on, and everything with the Penguin, whether again he's talking with Batman. I think we have like 3 different times where Batman shows up at the Iceberg Lounge. The first time he's Batman and he meets the twins, and I like that whole, like, I want to talk to the Penguin. The suit's gonna have a lot of blood on it, mine or yours. Like, that was fun. Then the next time he shows up and he's Bruce Wayne, and they do the same thing where it's like, the first time he'd been like, "Do you know who I am?" When he was dressed as Batman. This time he does it, "Do you know who I am?" And it's like, "Oh, it's Bruce Wayne." And he gets, of course, to just walk right in, because it's like, "Oh, we've got to let Bruce Wayne in to talk to Falcone." And then the third time he shows up, like, the door opens and there's nobody's there, and he just, sneaks in behind it. Like, so I appreciated, like, there were little moments of kind of humor and progressing those scenarios that worked for me.
And I liked it too because it also showed he did do some of his like ninja abilities, I guess you could say, the stealthiness. And I like that we got those subtle hints of it. But again, he's still a young man, so he's still going to be like, "Oh, I'm going to charge right in and do it." And I like that because it's like
his assault on Falcone's thing at the end, where he, like, the elevator opens and the guy is like looking around for him and he's up at the top.
That was very Batman, right there.
And like, that was a really cool scene as he was like coming through fighting people. It was dark, all you were seeing bullet fires or maybe a quick flashlight, like that. I liked that scene a lot. I thought that was working for me. Like, he had knocked out the power, so it was completely dark, which is a Batman thing. Like, I'm good in the dark. All the rest of you, I don't know about.
You might be dead.
Yeah. So I appreciated that. I will say, I think this is the first on-screen Batman that hasn't been directly responsible for anyone dying. So kudos, because I think every other Batman has definitely done that.
Do we talk about the bridge scene with him and chasing Penguin? He kind of killed a lot of people on that one.
I would say that was Penguin.
He could have let Penguin go, though. He couldn't have let Penguin go and just not do a whole car chase.
Do you know what Batman's psychosis is? No, he could not let Penguin go.
So then he's responsible for some of those people that died on that bridge.
Excuse me, is the criminal who is responsible. Batman was just pursuing the criminal. He cannot be held responsible for what the criminal was doing.
Also, like
at the time he was pursuing him.
Where's the Batcopter and the Batplane?
He hasn't built them yet.
Oh, okay.
He does have. I did think that was kind of dorky, although I appreciated it. His bike at the end
Oh,
with like
it really was. I was going to say that too.
with the bat ears on it. It was like I was like, this is kind of like lame and dorky, but I also kind of love it, so I'm okay with it.
It was such a nod to like the old school stuff. It's like,
yeah,
because I looked at it too. I was like, does that really have his wings, his bat ears? Oh,
yeah.
Okay, we're one with that.
So yeah, I mean, I think ultimately, again, the slower portions of this movie, the serial killer portion of this movie, worked really well for me. I wanted to point out as well, one of the things I really appreciated that a lot of movies don't do well is when Batman and Gordon are kind of doing their investigation, and they go into the garage and they find that car, and they do like, the thumb drive thing, and I think in a lot of movies like this, you'll see, especially when it's two characters, one of them will have kind of a physical reaction to the gruesomeness. They'll go, ugh, like, or have that like, oh, gag moment. And in this one, it was like, no, they've both been there, done that. They've seen plenty of shit.
They just want to deal with it. Yeah.
Like you have, like Gordon making, dry wise, like, this guy's hilarious, like thumb drive, but neither one of them are like, oh my God, it's a severed thumb. Like, we've never seen anything like this before. Like, they're both just like, yeah, this is the kind of stuff you run into when you do the work that we do. So I appreciated that, because a lot of times, they'll have that perspective of the rookie cop who's never seen, this is, oh my God, it's so gruesome. I kind of appreciated that we didn't get any of that. It's like, no, they live in Gotham. This is what they expect.
This is every day we see a thumb somewhere. Yeah, I mean, I liked it because it was still like,
I'll get you a toe. I can get you a toe in 3 hours.
Give me a second. It was one of those too, like, I liked it because it wasn't, like you said, it wasn't like, oh, it's disgusting. It was more like, why do I have to touch the thumb again? Like, do I really have to do this? Because like the scene where he's like, try this, and he's like, I'm not disgusted. It was just like, I don't want to touch this. I don't want to do this right now. I don't want to care for this. Yeah, and I liked it. Yeah. I wanted to make Batman a jerk at that point, because I'm being like, you have the glove. I would be like, you got the gloves, dude. You're already touching it. Like, why aren't you doing that part?
Yeah, come on, Batman.
See, Batman's a germaphobe.
So yeah, I think I will say the opening of the movie, where we see snippets of kind of different crimes. Right. And we get the voiceover of Batman talking about how, like he's striking fear in people because they never know where he's going to come from. Like, that was all. I loved that. And I love how each one of those kind of people perpetuating those crimes looks into like a dark alley or just somewhere where they can't see anything. And you can tell they're like, is Batman about to come get me? Like, where is he, guys? And so I think that was done really well. We've seen kind of in other movies, they've talked about, like the symbol in the sky is is something that, is not just for, me, but it's also for the criminals to see, oh, Batman's going to be here. Like, and so I appreciated the way they did that. I thought it started off really solid. And again, it's a good movie. It really is. The movie was really good. I didn't care for the climax, honestly. No. Even though it did, again, kind of close Batman's arc of realizing that he needed to become more for the city. It just didn't make sense from a tonal perspective for me, or from a narrative perspective of that being the Riddler's plan. I just felt like his plan shouldn't have included that. It didn't make sense from what he built before. But ultimately, performances in this movie were awesome. All the performances, a lot of cool action, a lot of cool, detective stuff, a lot of cool, kind of noir aspects to it. So I really enjoyed the movie.
Again, I did too, but just like everything, you're gonna have negatives on it, and we did too. Overall, though, I agree. The acting is amazing. Still a solid movie. I would still recommend to go see it. I'm probably gonna try to see it again next week. So let's see I'm going to see if my opinion changes even. So yeah. And
we did talk about, PG-13 and R. Yes. It is PG-13, yes, but it is not a kids movie. No, it is. If you have a teenage child that is, mature and able to, watch, but it's not just action. It's not just violence. There are psychological aspects of this movie that are pretty mature. So, that's the type of thing where, I would say it's about on the level of The Dark Knight.
Yeah, I would say.
Would you agree?
I would
Would
say.
you
I
agree
can
with
agree to
that?
that.
So I think
it's up there.
if you would let your kid watch The Dark Knight,
Yeah.
they could probably watch this one. If you would say, that's a little bit too mature, a little bit the Joker's a little bit too kind of creepy and scary, and so I'm gonna hold off, then hold off on this one too.
Yeah, exactly. And I agree to that. So on that note, guys, we're gonna end it here. Again, go check out the movie. I know, like I said, I'm probably gonna say it a second time. And hopefully you enjoy it. Let us know in the comments below if you liked it or not. All at official GYGO. I'm Aaron, and that's Bat Robert with his Bat Adrenaline. And you have a great day, guys. Get your geek on.
Batman. See you later, guys.